making a big one. We're into the final stretch of the NFL regular season, and the Dolphins have reached their biggest and most important game. The Fins have a 1-1 record in critical December games heading into this Sunday's 1 o'clock start against the New England Patriots, which will be played in Foxborough. Will Joe Philbin's team keep their faint playoff hopes alive, or will Miami roll over like they've done most seasons during the Brady and Belichick era? I'm CBS 12's Matt Lincoln. He's Sun Sentinel Dolphins columnist Omar Kelly. You are emotional, angry Dolphins fans licking your wounds from last Sunday's 28-13 loss to the Baltimore Ravens. Oh, it's a tough one, wasn't it? Oh, my goodness. As usual, we'll take your questions on Twitter. All you have to do is ask them using the hashtag XOMAR or send us a video question. And we're always looking for your challenges. We've got our referee. Yes, our referee is here.
How do you botch a whistle?
This is like week 15, Jamal. You should have enough practice by now. So if you have any challenges for anything that we say, hashtag XOMAR on Twitter. Make sure you say that is a challenge, and the challenge flag will be thrown.
Looking for challenges.
We have seen what transpired against the Ravens last week.
Humbling.
Well, it was the game of the year. The most important. This next one is now important, but that was the game of the year.
That was the game that determined whether or not you were a playoff team.
Yeah.
What we realize now is that you do not have the physicality to match with the Ravens, which is what we talked about on this show all last week. The Dolphins pretend, let me not say pretend. The Dolphins are a physical team. They're a tough team. However, the Ravens are one of the NFL's most physical teams, the toughest team, the most aggressive team, and you have to match the way that they play, or you have to outsmart them. The Dolphins did neither of those two.
And as the issues that pops up week after week after week, this is not a team that can make big offensive plays.
You know what was troubling to me, the most troubling aspect of that Ravens game? The game plan was designed for the Dolphins to be aggressive. The play calls were designed. There were a lot of plays where there were only two receiver routes because everybody was in max protecting. You were going for the home run. You knew that the Ravens were going to blitz, be aggressive, just come after the Dolphins, especially on third down. You did nothing. You couldn't counter. You couldn't respond. And ultimately, you ended with a pretty much convincing, I wouldn't say blowout, but a really convincing loss, which seemed like your team quit on you in the fourth quarter.
Well, that second half was convincing. That was no...
the third quarter, I would say, was... The Ravens...
They're still in it, right?
They were still in it. The Ravens matched it, took the lead. The Dolphins responded, got you close. And then the fourth quarter got there, and the Ravens pummeled them, steamrolling all the way down the field to score. And then the Dolphins gave it 3 and out. The next drive, the Ravens pummeled you again, moving all the way down the field, owning time of possession. That's how physical teams, aggressive teams play. Love the way the Ravens play. And people who know me and follow me on Twitter know I'm a huge Ravens fan from the standpoint aggressive quarterback, aggressive receivers, aggressive defensive line, aggressive coach. To me, the play of the game was that 4th and 1 on the 35-yard line. There was no doubt, no hesitation, no.
Let's take a timeout and think about it.
No, we're some bad mamma jammas, and we're gonna go get that 1 yard.
Yeah.
When have you seen? And in fairness to Joe Philbin, they call plays like that. They have instances like that. There was a Green Bay, the 4th and 1 at the goal line, which to me could have made the difference in the game if you were smart enough to kick that field goal. But you wanted to make a statement, and you botched it. Ravens, they make statements, and they make bold ones.
And I have friends in the Baltimore media. I was talking to them before the game. They were talking about this team, and they're used to seeing really good Baltimore teams. There's the one thing about this team is their cornerback's just not good enough.
Yeah,
the defensive back's just not good enough for this. And they were never tested. Ryan Tannehill never threw down the field and tested those guys.
They were on their 5th cornerback in that game, and because 2 of the cornerbacks got hurt, and
Vince just never went after him.
But I'm not talking quarterbacks this week.
Okay, well, I'm sure we're going to get a question eventually. Our first question comes from @ZacharyGibbons1. Which issue do you feel is a top priority for the Dolphins to address? I'm guessing he's talking postseason here, after the season is over. He says right tackle.
No, you don't need to address it after the season because Brandon Albert should be coming back healthy probably by the first month of the season, and then you've got Juwan James there to man that right tackle spot. I will agree. You need to improve and supplement and fortify your offensive line. But in terms of the final stretch of the season, in terms of the New England game, the Minnesota game, the Jets game, you do have to address the right tackle position.
Yeah.
I would say right tackle or linebacker. Dallas Thomas, as we've said for weeks in this show, he's adequate. He's okay, but there are going to be 5 to 7 plays a game where he just gets completely dominated. He destroys a play. He's a liability, and it exposes you as a team. Now, unfortunately, against an aggressive team like the Baltimore Ravens, those 5 to 7 plays resulted in 4 sacks.
Right.
Huge
plays.
And free blitzers. If you're a smart coach like the New England Patriots have, you look at Dallas Thomas and you look at Philip Wheeler, the two weak links of the Miami Dolphins team from an offense and a defensive standpoint, and you do what it takes to expose them. You do what it takes to attack them. So I expect Dallas Thomas to be under heavy artillery in terms of things that the Patriots are going to throw at him. I wouldn't even be surprised if they put Vince Wilfork over there just to collapse the pocket and probably put Vince Wilfork over Mike Pouncey and collapse the pocket and then force Dallas Thomas to be on an island by himself with no help. That's the way the Patriots play. Whatever your weak link is, they're going to highlight it and they're going to expose it.
That was another head-scratching thing about the game is that Tannehill was only throwing 5 yards down the field, and still he didn't seem to have enough time to get those types of completions that are really just right in front of the line of scrimmage.
There were plays that were set up for him to throw bigger, and certainly he didn't have enough time on a lot of those plays. The pocket was collapsing, the pressure was there. You roll him out, you roll him out left, you roll him out right. They did use play action early in the game, and it was kind of effective even though he wasn't throwing big. That's just a dichotomy of how the game is played out, but I thought that they should have used more screens, more quick hitches, more underneath stuff to sort of try to force the Ravens to stop being so aggressive and stop pinning their ears back and going upfield. If you throw, and I thought that Lamar Miller really had a good first half in that game.
Great first half.
Yeah, I wouldn't say great, but he had a good first
Yeah, he
half,
did.
which is we've talked about it for weeks and weeks. Lamar Miller needs more touches. He needs more carries. He needs more passes thrown his way. He needs to stop being rotated into the offense. If you look at how this team is built, there's 3 major key components to the offense. There's Lamar Miller, 4.8 yards per carry, the 9th highest rushing average in the NFL. There's Mike Wallace, who should stretch the field, isn't stretching the field. You got to figure out a way to help him stretch the field. And then you've got Jarvis Landry, who works the underneath stuff. Everybody else is just a side dressing. And the problem that I have is the main course of the meal, Lamar Miller running the ball or pass catching, you don't have a big enough entree of it.
Right.
You need to have Lamar Miller run the ball 5 times, throw it to him at least 3 times. Lamar Miller needs 20 touches per game, in my mind, in order for you to shed this finesse team that you are, this finesse label, and you are a finesse team. Joe Philbin, you could deny it all you want. You could talk about your running average, but you are a finesse team. You can only run when teams give you the run. You need to run him and utilize him more to basically make your offense more efficient. I mean, if you run more, it takes more pressure, less pressure off Dallas Thomas and the offensive line. It takes more pressure off Ryan Tannehill, and it sort of plays into the strength of who you are as a team. You're a run-blocking line, and you've got a running back who's got the 9th highest rushing average in the NFL. Unfortunately, he only touches the ball, carries the ball 12.5 times a game.
But as we talked about it before, it's not like there are a bunch of other ancillary guys who are getting a ton of touches.
Yeah.
This team is not having larger plays. They're not having that big plays, getting first downs. They're having issues getting first downs. They're having issues getting first downs, extending drives, and having more opportunities to get Lamar Miller the ball. There are not enough offensive plays.
They're on the field enough, and they get to the red zone enough, and I think they're productive on first and second down enough. I think the issue that you're having is you're not necessarily productive on third down. Why? You could figure that out on your own. They're not exactly efficient in the red zone. Why? You can't run the ball with power. You're not using a lot of the quick plays. You don't have a big possession target. Those are some of the variables that are involved in it. Quarterback's not always accurate. But there are 4 elements of this team that I think have to improve in order for this Dolphins team to get to 9 to 10 wins. Got to be better in the red zone on offense and defense. Got to be better on third downs on offense and defense. Got to be able to hit bigger plays. I mean, you have a 6.6 yards per attempt average. When I'm saying you, I mean Ryan Tannehill. And there are only 4 quarterbacks worse than you in the NFL. And if I named the quarterbacks, you'd be ashamed of yourself because it's the company of Geno Smith and Blake Bortles and Derek Carr. So basically, your peers are rookies.
Right.
Not good rookies, just rookies in terms of yards per play. And then, obviously, we know you got to stop the run, which has been a huge issue for the last 3 weeks.
Where did that come from? I mean, they were doing such a great job stopping the run, and then 3 weeks ago, I felt against the Broncos, that was almost by plan. We're going to do whatever we can to stop Peyton Manning, and if they run the ball a little bit, it's okay. But the past 2 weeks against the Jets, and then the second half against the Ravens, they just had no answer.
You know what the Denver Broncos showed? It showed that if you double Randy Starks, or you double Jared Odrick, or you double Earl Mitchell, you can move them out their gap. The hole is there, and then the pressure's on the running back to make something happen, to make the play happen. Cole Amisi, Jelani Jenkins, Philip Wheeler, Jason Trusnick, you can name them. The play of the linebackers just hasn't been good enough lately. Now, it's everybody. The edge setting isn't getting done. Deion Jordan, horrible defensive end. Cameron Wake gave you 0 tackles, 0 contribution last week against the Baltimore Ravens. Olivier Vernon was decent, but they need a nose tackle like a Paul Soliai or like an AJ Francis. They need a guy who is physical enough to take on 2 blockers, eat their blockers, don't get moved, and allow everybody else to work. Right now, that's just not there.
All right, we've got a lot more questions to get to, so let's go. At Gio Forvani wants to know. Gio Forvani wants to know, what's the biggest positive from the season so far?
I think we've seen young players develop. I think we've seen Ryan Tannehill develop. Is he developed enough? I don't know.
You're really going to say that Ryan Tannehill's the biggest positive from this season?
No, he's developed.
Okay.
I went into this season not knowing if he was a starting quarterback in the NFL. I am certain he's a starting quarterback in the NFL right now. You don't have a 92.2 quarterback rating by accident.
Right.
We've seen progress and development every 3 years that he's been here and has been the Dolphins starting quarterback. The problem that you have is, does he have it? Does he have the intangibles, the leadership, the moxie? Can he throw bold enough passes that can lead you to a playoff victory, that can get you to the playoffs,
so
that can lead you to the Super Bowl?
So what you're saying is there's basically 3 types of quarterbacks in the NFL. There's the guys who have it, the guys who can hold a job, and the guys who are terrible, is basically what you're saying. And Tannehill's in the middle?
Tannehill's in the middle. He's right. He's in the second tier.
Okay.
He's in the bottom of the second
of 3
tier
tiers.
of NFL quarterbacks,
Okay.
of 3 tiers, yes.
Johnny Tierney has a good question. Do players really want to play for Joe Philbin? We saw a little anger come out of
frustration
of Jared Odrick. Should we take that for more than just what it was, anger in the moment?
It was anger in the moment, but it was probably building up. And I think it's not just Jared Odrick, it's a lot of players. In terms of answering the question, do players want to play for Joe Philbin? Not really.
Yeah.
Joe Philbin is there. He creates a great game plan. Does he motivate his team? Does he inspire his team? No. And if the game plan isn't working, does he create enough of a backup game plan in terms of counters? There is no conviction to Joe Philbin. And if I've always liked the alpha males of the league in terms of guys who are the biggest gorilla in the room. Joe Philbin will never be the biggest gorilla in the room.
Right.
And personality-wise, do you have to be a good coach? No. A lot of coaches, Tony Dungy does not have a alpha male personality.
Right.
There are tons of coaches who do not have an alpha male personality. Dallas is Sean Garrett.
Jason
Garrett does not have an alpha male personality. However, they can do other things that allow them to excel in their realm. They can reach players. I don't really think Joe Philbin inspires, motivates, or reaches players.
Right.
And that's not a knock on Joe. You are who you are, and he's never pretended to be anything other than who he is. However, I really do think that this team needs somebody who can inspire them.
Well, it's interesting because the 1 week of the year that we've talked at all about the players playing for Joe was the week that his father passed away. And I think that was the Chargers game, right,
Yes,
that
absolutely.
week. And that was their best performance. And they shut out a team that's currently in the playoff picture and a team that, and they came out saying after that game, we did this one for Joe.
A team that they've also always proven that they're better than, especially in South Florida. And that's not making any excuses. They came out and they said, yeah, we did it for Joe. We wanted to win for Joe.
Okay.
But you know what? You're playing for Joe in your final 3 games. Are you going to play for Joe again?
Yeah.
Do you really want Joe Philbin as your head coach? I'm not sure. I
don't know either.
Yeah. How hard will they play for Joe Philbin? That's the question that we will learn soon.
All right. At Stokesy asks, do you think Philbin should be given one more year because he has a new general manager and a new offensive coordinator?
I have thought about that. To me, the ultimate is the 9 wins. If you
Okay.
get to 9 wins, I will consider anything. I think Dennis Hickey is a talented general manager. I like some of the moves he's made. Some of the moves have blown up in his face because of injuries. I like some of his draft picks. Some of them have not panned out so well because they were from small schools, which I complained about on draft day. I like the fact that I believe he can learn and develop and get better. In terms of Joe Philbin, all bets are off if you
Right.
don't produce 9 wins.
Well,
I don't want you around because this team is more talented than the 8-win team.
Well, here's one of my issues. We talked about the last 2 games, home against the Vikings, home against the Jets, 2 of the easier games of the entire year. If they go and they lose this game at New England, they're 7-7,
Yeah.
and their chance of making the playoffs are
Non-existent.
almost totally
On
non-existent.
life support.
They're on life support now. They're even very
They're
close to
fainter.
death.
They're like
So what difference does the
catatonic.
last 2 games mean anyway? I mean, what
no,
difference
no,
do those
no,
last?
no.
They're 7-7, basically out of the playoff picture. What difference does the last 2 games make anyway?
I asked you this question. When was the last winning season for the Miami Dolphins?
Was it 08?
Oh, wait.
Okay.
You think about how long that's been.
Okay.
It's been a long time. And you have a talented team, despite all your injuries, and you got a lot of injuries right now. You have a talented team. This team has 9-win talent. The coach should be able to get it to 10 wins. Just coach your team to the talent level. And I'm not sure that's always happening on an everyday basis, every game basis. I need to see this team get to 9 wins. If they don't get to 9 wins, pull the plug.
Okay. Well, we'll see. You asked for more true and false on X's and Omar, and we are delivering. You know how this game is played. You give us a topic, we'll discuss it, breaking down the validity to its truest essence. We'll just tell you if it's false. Time to play. Okay. Taylor Ballard, true or false? This team has at least 2 more wins without the injuries to their free agent acquisitions. It seems like all the big names that they brought in. Brandon Albert, Noshawn Moreno, and of course now Louis Delmas.
Yeah.
Cortland Finnegan's had issues getting on the field.
They've lost a ton of cornerbacks. In
yeah.
terms of Cortland Finnegan's been out a month. Will Davis is on IR because of a knee injury. Michael Thomas is on IR because of a shoulder injury. Jamar Taylor might or might not play because of a shoulder injury.
True or false, though, these big-name free agents, if they were healthy, the Dolphins would be in that playoff picture.
I definitely believe that Brandon Albert and Noshawn Moreno would be able to get you another victory, whether that be 9 or 10. Brandon Albert, when he went down, I mean, we said he was the MVP of the season.
Yeah.
He sort of changed the element of your team in terms of Dallas Thomas is starting his 9th game.
Yeah.
Dallas Thomas is maybe your 7th best offensive lineman on the team, and he's starting his 9th game. You shouldn't play like that. You shouldn't live like that. Unfortunately, that is part of the realm of the NFL.
Yeah.
And Jason Fox and Billy Turner have not done enough to step up and prove that they're better than Dallas Thomas. Nate Garner is not even healthy. He's battling some migraine issues right now. He hasn't practiced in 3 weeks. So do I fault the coaches for playing Dallas Thomas? No.
Right.
But you have no other option. So would Brandon Albert make the situation better? Absolutely. Noshawn Moreno. The physicality that you got pounded in the face with by Baltimore, that's what players like Noshawn Moreno bring to the table. You don't have anybody else who can do that. And just the intensity and the toughness and the mentality that we're not going to be punked. Noshawn brought that. Brandon Albert brought that. Louis Delmas brought that. Michael Thomas brought that. They're not here anymore.
But all those are not all those injuries, not enough of an excuse to not win 9 games with this team.
Absolutely.
Okay. At Sports Debate, true or false? Philbin gets another year because of these injuries. Well, I guess we just answered that question.
False. Listen, every team in the NFL has injuries. The New England Patriots had a ton of injuries. overcame them, made trades to bring in guys like Ayer, the linebacker.
Yeah.
Jonas Gray, who's a Dolphins cast-off, is basically starting for them. You don't make excuses about injuries. You just win.
All right. At Gio Forvani, we are bringing him in again. True or false? If Ryan Tannehill needs everything around him perfect to win, then he is not the answer.
That is so true. And I have a huge issue with this because I think the patience brigade, as patient as you folks are, you have a problem understanding that if everything has to be perfect around the quarterback, he's not the answer. Good quarterbacks make their offensive linemen better. There are instances in that play where Ryan Tannehill saw the pressure coming, could do nothing about it, and took the sack. That's not a good quarterback.
No.
There are instances where blitzes are coming, and the play is designed for you to throw quick or throw hot. Ryan Tannehill did not throw hot. That's on the quarterback. There are instances where sometimes you got to give a receiver a chance. Just put the ball up there. Give him a chance at a 50-50 ball. How often do you see Ryan Tannehill throwing a 50-50 ball?
Not very
It's
often.
always the wide receiver's fault.
Right.
If a quarterback is consistent in producing and moving the chains on third downs, if you have to play him like you have to play Peyton Manning or Drew Brees or Tom Brady, doesn't that help the running game? If a quarterback owns time of possession, doesn't it make the defense better? Good quarterbacks make everybody around them better.
I think what the interesting point about this whole Tannehill question and why it's such a great debatable question is the fact that I did this yesterday on my blog, which you can find at cbs12.com, that he is just about, the Dolphins basically have smack dab in the middle, of like 16th of quarterback situations. You can find 15 more disastrous quarterback situations across the NFL, and you can find 15 better quarterback situations. So are you a glass half empty or glass half full person and say at least we're not worse than we are?
True. You have the 14th best quarterback in the NFL. Here's my situation that I paint the picture for you. Quarterbacks are much like marriages. If you're going to propose, you better make sure you love her.
Yeah.
Because if you propose to Ryan Tannehill and you give him a $90 million contract and then you realize that he can't cook,
it's one expensive divorce. It's one expensive divorce.
It's not going to be pretty. So you better make sure you love Ryan Tannehill if you're going to propose.
All right. More true and false. At Brian Watson 131 asks, Matt Moore, true or false, comes in the second half against the Patriots?
False. This ship is sinking with Ryan Tannehill. Sinking or swimming with Ryan Tannehill. He is the guy. There's no doubt in my mind that the Dolphins are going to continue to invest in him, see what he has. They need to know. I mean, in May, and I keep saying this, you're going to have to decide on a $15 million option for 2016. Whether you pick it up or not, who knows? But Matt Moore, I don't really expect him to be around. He's on the books for $4 million this year. He's a free agent next offseason. I'm pretty sure or hope or pray that the Dolphins are going to go and draft a quarterback in the second or third round. Doesn't have to be first, to get a young player in that you can develop. And who knows? You look at the situation with the Eagles. They thought they were in love with Nick Foles. Then they put in Mark Sanchez, and they're like, oh, it's comparable.
It's really, you could put anyone in there.
You could, in this, and that's the thing, people got to understand. In this offense, it is a cookie-cutter offense for quarterbacks. You should be able to put in a guy and get decent production, which is what you see right now, 92.6 pass rate.
Maybe Brian thinks that the Dolphins are going to be up by 40, and that's why Matt Moore's coming in the second half.
Against the Patriots, that ain't happening.
JS asks, true or false, Miami's coaches will relent stubbornness and use Dion Jordan in a linebacker role to shadow Gronkowski this week. They might not have a choice, right?
Yeah, they've got so many injuries at linebacker right now in terms of Jelani Jenkins with a foot injury. If Jenkins doesn't practice today, my partner Chris Perkins is supposed to tell me whether or not he practices. And in fact, Chris Perkins says Messi, Jenkins, and Freeney are not working today. And McCain is working. Woo! I love me some McCain. So they're not practicing today. More than likely, they're not going to play. So you're going to have to play Dion Jordan in a drop back speed roll package. More than likely, they're going to shade Gronkowski with a safety and a linebacker, but you don't have one linebacker that can cover him right now. If this injury situation with Messi, who's battling a hamstring injury, and he's got a bad ankle and everything else that's wrong with him, if Messi doesn't play, if Jenkins doesn't play, it looks like your starting linebacker is going to be inside linebacker Kelvin Shepard.
Oh.
Then your weak side linebacker is going to be Jason Tresnick.
Oh, geez.
And then, of course, Your strong side linebacker is the Philip Wheeler against New England Patriots. That's not good.
That whole back seven is in trouble. Can Brett Grimes just cover everybody? At Matt Fortuna, 1206. True or false? Run defense can be fixed this year after being exposed for 661 rushing yards in 3 games.
I don't know, and I honestly don't have any good answers for you.
Yeah.
I mean, you go 3 games before that, and they held opponents to less than 70 rushing yards, and against 3 good opponents. We're talking about San Diego, Detroit, and Buffalo, under 70 yards. And then you flip it to where you are now, where you've allowed Denver and Jets and Baltimore to run for 661 yards and 4 touchdowns. It's unexplainable, except I could tell you, in the trenches is where players just deal with a lot of banging and a lot of banging and a lot of friction. It's every play, and that's why the Dolphins rotate so heavily. The problem that you have is those players wear down after a while.
Right.
And I suspect that Randy Starks is worn down. I suspect that Earl Mitchell is worn down. I suspect that Cameron Wake is worn down.
These aren't young guys. They're not young players.
They're 30-year-old players. I mean, some of them. Which is why you see Cameron Wake had barely played more snaps than Derek Shelby last week. You got to figure out a way to re-energize that unit, and I don't have an answer for you, especially when you have linebackers who can't contain their man, get up in the gaps and contain their man. It's, I don't have any solutions for you.
The only chance they have against the Patriots is that defensive line beating the Patriots' offensive line. At Rudy, July 2, true or false, we'll see more 2 tight end sets when Charles Clay is healthy. When Charles Clay is healthy.
Charles Clay will not be healthy this season. I in fact wrote a story about him in the Sentinel. He talked to me exclusively, and Charles Clay needs to have a knee operated on. Yeah. And Charles Clay is a dynamic player when he's healthy. He showed you 2 catches against the Ravens, the run after catch ability that he has, how he can threaten the seam. Unfortunately, he doesn't practice much. And when he plays, he's not a priority. Do I think they'll use more 2 tight end sets? Yes. Charles is back. He's healthy. He's been rested for 3 weeks. And Deion Sims is certainly blossoming as a player. Unfortunately, 2 tight end sets ain't helping you that much in the fourth quarter, especially when you're trying to rally back.
Right. At Wayne Cox 4, true or false, Lamar Miller will never get 20 carries as a member of the Dolphins. Never.
True. There's no way that you can convince me that Joe Philbin, the head coach of the Miami Dolphins, is going to hand Lamar Miller the ball 20 times.
Yeah, I mean,
in 2 years, it hasn't happened. It's not going to happen. I don't know. I have this joke on Twitter. They don't know the secret handshake. There are certain players where you just can't explain what the coaches are doing and, why Chris McCain doesn't play, even though he's hurt now. He doesn't know the secret handshake. Why doesn't Billy Turner play? Or get an opportunity. Why isn't he even active on the roster? And he doesn't know the secret handshake. And then a year from now, we're going to flip this. And I'm going to be sitting there with Joe Philbin at the owners' meeting, if he's still around.
Right.
And he's going to tell me, you know what? We really should have played and gave Lamar Miller more touches. We really should have played Billy Turner, gotten a look to see what he can do. We really should have played Chris McCain more. And I'll be sitting there thinking like, no duh.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the best guy, the best receiver, the best running backs, DeMarco Murray, Le'Veon Bell, just give it to him. Give it to him. Give it to him.
You know what? In fairness to them, in the third quarter, they did call 3 running plays that were negated by penalties. And they only had 2 possessions in the third quarter. So it was hard for them to kind of get greased up when you're playing 1st and 15.
Yeah.
But
we saw Daniel Thomas in the second quarter.
True.
Stay off the field.
Listen, but my issue with the Dolphins coaching staff, and Bill Lazor admits it does not take much for him to abandon the run game. Yeah. And they are a finesse team. That's what finesse teams do.
All right. At Lloyd Heilbrunn, true or false, this team is mentally weak and can't get past the, oh God, it's happening again feeling.
They are not mentally weak. There are a lot of tough guys. I think the tough guys are kind of being contained a little bit by the mentality of the team or the personality of the team. Have they proven that they can win a close game this season? No. Did they prove that last year? Yes. The question is, can you transition that to this year? And Ryan Tannehill has done it. He's won close fourth quarter games. He just has not been able to deliver them this year. But he has put his team in a position to win them. The defense just has failed to deliver them. So I would have to say true.
Okay.
Yes.
I think, too, sometimes we forget that these Dolphins players have only been Dolphins for, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. They haven't gone through the 2 to 3 decades of fandom that Dolphins fans have, and they get that feeling of, oh, this is happening again.
Oh, some of them
they
do.
understand.
Some of them do know it. Cameron Wake does know
Okay.
it because he's been here since 2009,
Wow.
and he knows that oh no feeling. But then some of them, like Brent Grimes, he don't know nothing about that.
Yeah.
Brent just knows how to play.
Right. At George Meyerly, true or false? If the Dolphins get blown out by New England, Philbin does not finish out the year.
That's false. Listen, Steve Ross, even if he is uncomfortable with the coaching situation, he needs to send a message to his next employer that he's a patient, loyal, committed man who just wants to win. And you don't fire your coach and send that message.
All right. The Patriots have won 8 of 9 games, are coming off a 23-14 victory over the Chargers, but the Dolphins have beaten New England 2 straight times. 2! And nothing's changed, right? Since the opening week when Miami beat New England 33-20. These are the exact same 2 teams, right? So it's going to be another 13-point victory for the Fins.
No, these are not the exact same 2 teams. Here's what's happened since the season opener. Rob Gronkowski now has 2 legs.
Yes.
Tom Brady is more comfortable with his offensive line. They've settled in. The Patriots have found a second tight end in Tim Wright. They've established a running game. Now they've got former Dolphins Jonas Gray back there pounding it out. Now they've also got, LeGarrette Blount has come home.
Yes.
Then they're a little bit more comfortable in the passing game. Browner is back in the cornerback
Yeah, their
situation.
defense is much better.
They've traded for a linebacker once they lost the linebacker. Patriots know how to adapt and morph into the team that they are, which is the best team in the AFC.
And you know what else I found was interesting? Let's talk about big plays again. Watching that Chargers-Patriots game late, that second half was all just pound, nothing happened, and then one big play, Julian Edelman breaks one tackle, he's gone, 68 yards, and the game is over.
You know what? It's funny you mention that play because I watched that play, and at the same time I said to myself, why don't I ever really see Dolphins?
Exactly, right?
But then I said to myself, Charles Clay did it. Jarvis Landry does it every game. It happens.
Yeah.
It just doesn't happen at the right time.
Right.
And Charles Clay did it and got himself to the 4-yard line, and you thought maybe he was in. It was a reviewable play, and it just didn't happen.
Right.
You've got to, when the moment gets, the pressure of the moment rises, you got to have players who will deliver. Unfortunately, this year, I can tell you, there's a very small list of players who have confidence and conviction that will deliver in those moments. And there just aren't enough of them.
I mean, you can't argue with what we've seen. The very few big plays happening late in games for these Fins. So can Miami go into Foxborough and take this victory with all the injuries that the Dolphins have in their back 7?
Well, it sounds like we're getting to prediction time. And I'm a little uncomfortable. I'm a little uncomfortable from the standpoint of all the linebackers that you've got going. Cortland Finnegan, this is now his second week practicing. He promises, he swears, this time he's really playing. He's not going to suffer a setback, but you don't know that.
Yeah.
He's a 29-year-old cornerback who's battled some injuries over the years, and as you age, you're not as healthy as you once were. So Cortland Finnegan has to play. If Cortland Finnegan plays, I will say the Dolphins have a chance. But Walt Aikens is going to be, Jimmy Wilson is going to be back there free safety. You need somebody to man that nickel spot because the Patriots will attack you with 2 things: their tight end and their and their slot receiver. You better make sure you have somebody who can contain Julian Edelman, Danny Amendola. If you don't, it's going to be a very long day because you know those linebackers aren't going to help you that much with the tight end.
So it's tough. It's going to be. I mean, you look at so many issues that the Patriots pose the Dolphins. Let's take just a couple more quick questions. At Eric Ruiz 3124. So what would need to happen for a chance at the playoffs if the Dolphins run the table?
Based on a lot of these formulas that people are throwing out, and I haven't really studied them tremendously, it seems like you need the Ravens and the Steelers to win, and for the Cincinnati to lose,
Right.
and create a three-way 10-win team tiebreaker.
Right.
And that benefits Miami if Cincinnati loses out. However, I don't see that happening. I'm not living in a pretend world. 1, Dolphins aren't winning 10. Just not there.
Okay.
And 2, the Bengals have been to the playoffs three straight years.
Yeah.
No matter what happens to their team in free agency or the draft or on the field, Bengals are a resilient team, and I think they're going to do just enough to get to 10, and with that tiebreaker, they're in.
Okay. Oh.
Good throw. Look at that.
Good throw and a good good whistle blow. So the challenge today comes from Nick from the chat. He says, challenge, Starks and Mitchell has half of the snaps of Audric. They need to be able to carry the load.
Okay, that's true. If you want to play, I personally think that Jared Audric is your best defensive tackle. Production-wise, you're not seeing it in the numbers, but he's there. He's taking, if you say that the way to go is playing Randy Starks and Earl Mitchell, you know what? I'd be interested in seeing it. I don't think Earl Mitchell can take on two blockers. And Randy Starks physically seems like he's wearing down. He's a 30-year-old defensive tackle. But if you think that that's the answer and that's the solution to help you stop the run a little bit better, go for it.
All right. Well, at Bobby Burns, why does this team prepare better for road games? Do you feel like that's true?
I don't think it's true. I think the Dolphins play the same on the road or at home. I mean, if you look at the Ravens game, hell, that was like a road game.
Yeah.
It's, you know what? They have pretty much the same record. I believe they're 3 and
3 and 3 at home, 4 and 3 on the road.
3 and 3 at home, 4 and 3 on the road. I really just think it's about matchups in the game, and whether it's at home or on the road, I think the matchups favor them on the road more than they have at home. Look at who you're playing on the road. You're playing Jacksonville on the road.
Right.
You're playing Oakland on the road. You're playing Chicago on the road. That's 3 wins right
3
there.
wins right there.
So I really don't think it's home or away. I think Joe Philbin prepares his team consistently the same way each and every week. To me, it always comes down to the matchups.
All right. Do you have a score for us for this weekend?
I do have a score. I'm going to predict a Dolphins 27-20 loss.
Oh.
I have a hard problem predicting against Tom Brady. And last time I did predict the Patriots to win, and I was pleasantly surprised that the Dolphins managed to win it at home. The Dolphins have played well in Foxborough going back to last year. That was the Olivier Vernon forward hit, tip pass play, and the Caleb Sturgis missed field goal that sort of shifted the momentum Patriots' way. The problem that you have when you play the Patriots is everything has to go right for you.
Right.
How often does that happen in an NFL game? And when things do go right for you, like it did against the Denver Broncos, and then all of a sudden the momentum starts to shift, do you panic? And as we've seen this season, the Dolphins continue to panic.
Last game of the season, 2000, the Dolphins went into Foxborough and beat the Patriots. Since then, the Pats 25-2 in home December games. They just don't lose these games. And I don't think they will lose this game either. 33-17. I got one more question that came in during the show. At End the Woods, biggest underperformer on the defensive line is Randy Starks. True or false?
True.
Ooh.
You don't call out Randy Starks very often because it's not going to end well.
All right, great. Mr. Starks, I had no part of what just transpired there.
Yeah. You only just asked the question.
Yeah. I have no control over what
my
pops
back
up
in the
on my
locker
phone.
room.
All right, that's going to do it for X's and Omar. We're here live every Wednesday at 12:15, breaking down your Dolphins. You can find the replay of the show on sunsentinel.com. If you're looking for more Dolphins news, you can find Omar Kelly's First and 10 with Dolphins wide receiver Mike Wallace.
Good one.
On sunsentinel.com sports pages. Thanks for coming. We'll see you next week.